Hey gang, Josh Porter here from Buttered and Salty. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for the nice reaction of our first video, which was a little bit of general thoughts after coming out of the Star Wars RISE of Skywalker screening. Just a quick little video to see how it would feel doing some video content. People have been mentioning it to me. I think it'd be a cool thing to include with all my written reviews. I'm just going to keep it that way for now. You'll have the written review, you'll have the video maybe on the bottom online, both of the Mountain Democrat site and the goodmenproject.com site. And I think we'll keep it going right now just to see how it goes. Some good comments down below. I appreciate the people that viewed it. It was a nice surprise, and if we keep kind of ticking up viewers and comments and subscriptions every time, we'll see where it goes, and I'll maybe spend a little bit more time and money on this video content. We'll get some good buttered and salty graphics, get some better sound equipment, maybe get it out of my office here, who knows. So we'll just see where it goes. We're just gonna do a little bit of fun video comment so we can kind of engage together and talk about the films that I review. And this week, like I said, is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to give a little bit more spoiler-heavy info and opinions in this video. I'll keep it short, just a few minutes, but it'll kind of be a good companion piece to my written review, which is coming out this weekend, and it'll allow us to discuss. So comment down below whether you liked it, whether you didn't. If you have questions, let's discuss. No trolling people, no spoiling it for people. I mean, this video will say spoilers all over it, but the comments down below don't. So I've seen a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter already be talking about this film, and they've been spoiling the heck out of it. Not cool, guys. Let people enjoy their experience. It's film, it's art, it's cinema, whether it's big budget or whether it's a small independent film. Let's not spoil anything for people. Let's just discuss the film itself. So with that in mind, I'm going to be referencing my written review, which I just submitted a little while ago. Again, you'll see it on the mountaindemocrat.com website and on the Good Men Project website, and this video will accompany it. The first line of my review, I'll start there, and then we'll go on to a few more spoilers and story points, was Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was an entertaining but vapid movie. And what I mean by that is it didn't really take any risks. It had nothing new to offer to the proceedings. And that was kind of what was frustrating for me. It's a fun movie, it's a big movie, it's a really dense movie, and it's a well-made film, obviously, but there's nothing particularly new that hasn't already happened in this trilogy or in this saga. I understand that you kind of have to stick to the lane, so to speak, when you're making a Star Wars film, but not particularly. I mean, obviously we knew what was going to happen at the end of Rogue One, and I thought that was made very competently. It's one of my favorite Star Wars films. Say what you will about the prequels, but they brought something new. And I'm going to return to that, but that's basically a big issue that I had with these films. I gave Star Wars The Last Jedi a very good review 2 years ago, and I haven't really gone back on that. With subsequent viewings, the midsection, it drags. The Canto Blight scene, I think that's how you call the Casino Planet, it definitely drags, has a lot of issues, and I don't like that sequence at all. Though that would have been a better place to introduce Lando Calrissian than this film, which it's great to see him. He's still the coolest cat in the room, but why is he there? He's there because we want to see Lando, and it's the last film in the saga. That's why. He would have made more sense if he was running this Casino Planet, and they brought him on board to help with the rebellion, the resistance. Excuse me. But I gave The Last Jedi a pretty good review. I stand by that. I thought it was one of the most fresh films in the saga ever since the originals. Agree with me or not, I understand why people don't. Believe me, we don't need to troll each other in comments. I get why people don't like The Last Jedi. I do. However, it's really the only film in this new trilogy, and really since the original films, because I didn't get this from the prequels, that surprised me, that entertained me, made me kind of comment and gasp out loud at certain parts. When I thought they killed Leia in the beginning, which I thought would have been brilliant, because I thought maybe she was going to, that character was going to be a goner in that film. Luckily she wasn't, but I thought this is incredible if they kill her off in the beginning. They didn't, and yes, the Mary Poppins flying back to the ship in space was a little bit cheesy. A lot cheesy. But it's not a perfect movie, but it's entertaining. It took risks. I loved the training stuff with Mark Hamill and Luke, as Luke Skywalker. Even if he didn't agree with where the character was going, and I guess maybe I didn't either, we don't want to see a cynical Luke Skywalker. We want to see one that's optimistic like in the original films, that wants to be a Jedi, that wants to defeat evil. But I got something to tell you folks, that doesn't always happen in life. If you think about the story themselves, if you've seen what Luke Skywalker has seen, friends, entire planets be decimated, friends being killed, obviously his Padawans or young Jedi being murdered by who became Kylo Ren, having to see his father die, all the things he went through, he might be a cynical old hermit. I found that fascinating, actually. And obviously I was very surprised with everything that happened at the end with his interaction with Kylo Ren and him dying at the end. I may not have fully agreed with it. I thought it was a beautiful way to end the film, and the film knew where it was going. I don't feel that way with Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It seems like basically J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, I think is the name of the writer, great writer, wrote Argo, wrote Justice League. Okay, a very gifted writer though. This feels like the most expensive fan film ever made. Like they went online and saw everything everybody wants and just went down and checked off the list with Lucasfilm and with Disney. That's not all bad. There's some really fun moments. But in general, that's not the best way to write a script. And I think it also shows that they did not have a specific plan for this trilogy. When you're going to make a trilogy of films like Disney intended to, when you spend $4 billion on a franchise, you should probably have a good plan. You got Lawrence Kasdan to come back and write the script for Force Awakens. He, of course, wrote Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's a force from the early days of Lucasfilm with Indiana Jones and Star Wars. When you're going to do that, you should probably tap him to sit down for a few months and actually plot out what could happen with the 3 films. JJ says they had a general idea. That's a bit surprising to me. It doesn't feel like that. I'm sure certain ideas in this were planned out, but it just doesn't feel like that way. And that's where I'm going to start here, is where Rey goes, which is the best example of did they know where they were going with this franchise. Rian Johnson, and this is again spoilers, stop the video right now and come back to it at the end of the weekend when you see the film. If spoilers don't matter to you, which a few friends it didn't, they wanted to talk about it. Some people, spoilers don't impede their enjoyment of the film. A lot of people it does. If it does, just stop the video now. So first spoiler is the heritage of Rey. A lot of us thought maybe she was a Skywalker. A lot of us thought that maybe she was Obi-Wan Kenobi's grandkid. Rian Johnson made the interesting, bold choice that she was a nobody, that her parents were drinkers and scavengers. That kind of disappointed some people because they wanted a big revelation. Personally, I thought that was fascinating. You grab somebody that has nothing to do with the rest of the saga and you're making her a hero, which Luke Skywalker was before we found out a lot about his past. Granted, even in the beginning of A New Hope, we know that his father was Anakin Skywalker. Still, we weren't familiar with the character at the time, so this was all new to us. So just like it was all new to Rey in this trilogy, I thought that was a great decision. Obviously, the audience and J.J. Abrams did not feel that way. So, spoiler: who is she the family member of? Not Luke Skywalker. She is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. Okay, interesting, but a bit eye-rolling. I never thought I would actually roll my eyes during a pretty interesting visual action sequence when this revelation happens, but I did. Here's my problem with this. Number one, when you start to really think about it, it seems, one, very cliche for the saga. It would be cliche if she was a Skywalker, granted. However, the whole saga is about the Skywalkers, so you can forgive it if it's a little cliche with that. Number two, it's very cliche that they think they just have to repeat this poetry, as George Lucas said it, of having someone have to be related to someone else in the saga. The Star Wars universe is huge. We're finally learning that. We learned a little more from Rogue One with new characters we've never seen before. The Mandalorian, all this stuff that's going to come, finally push that galaxy far, far away out a little bit more. Not everybody has to be related to somebody else of note in the saga. She is Emperor Palpatine. Okay, well that's interesting. We've never really talked about his family or his heirs. But as I started thinking about it and I left the theater, I really got curious. So this is the daughter of either Palpatine's son or daughter. And then you're telling me, because they kind of show them very briefly in a flashback, that the son or daughter of Emperor Palpatine was a really nice guy or gal and saved her and kind of put her on a planet to kind of protect her. And Luke Skywalker and nobody else that was still active at the time knew of this person's existence. It kind of makes me just really question, like, okay, well, who was the mother then? Who was Emperor Palpatine's wife or girlfriend or mistress or whatever? And you're telling me the son or daughter that they created wasn't brought in by Emperor Palpatine to be extremely evil and part of the Sith as well? There's just so many questions that comes out of that. It just drove me crazy thinking through it. So that was the first thing that it feels like this just came out of left field. Whether it did or didn't, I don't know. They took a risk on it, and that one just didn't really work for me. Continuing on with the character standpoints, I guess I've never really been that thrilled or impressed with a lot of the new characters. I think they nailed it with Kylo Ren, and a lot of that has to do with the casting of Adam Driver, who's wonderful. Daisy Ridley's great as Rey. I like Rey. Kylo Ren is definitely my favorite character in the new trilogy. It's really hard to follow up a villain like Darth Vader. I don't know if he's obviously quite Darth Vader territory, but Kylo Ren and Adam Driver playing him is really superb. So he's the most interesting person in the trilogy to me. Finn and Poe Dameron always felt a little forced to me, in the fact that the first two films, they weren't really given much to do. They went on their individual adventures, but they were never really memorable like any of the original trilogy cast. They're given more to do this time, and they're more integral characters, probably because they all stay together the whole time. But even still, I never found them to be particularly interesting characters like Han Solo was, like Old Man Kenobi was, or any of that. So they're fine actors, of course, but I never really particularly liked the characters. So that's that. It didn't really change in this. When you only care about Kylo Ren, Rey to an extent, and then the legacy characters, which you don't really have anymore, other than, Han Solo is gone. Princess Leia has some footage, obviously, and she's actually in a good amount of it. 10 minutes or so is a really long time. So she's in several scenes. But, yeah, so when your legacy character's almost gone, other than Chewbacca, you don't have a lot to rely on. So that's where I feel like between Rey and Kylo Ren, they didn't have a lot planned out for this. Say what you will about George Lucas. I'm not a big fan of the prequel trilogy. I do like Revenge of the Sith. But he knew exactly where he was going with it, like it or not. As a teenager, I was always preferring him to kind of scoot ahead to sequels. I always was intrigued by Anakin Skywalker's story, but you could leave it off the screen and let the imagination kind of fill in the blanks. He went back and did it. I did not like episode 1 or 2 at all. I did like 3, so at least he knew where he was going though. And it just feels like that this was not plotted out, which is surprising because obviously Lucas kind of had a general idea of where he wanted a sequel trilogy to go, and they shit-canned it. So they may not have liked it, but at least they should have filled in the blanks that they threw out of his with an equally, laid out map and plan of sequel trilogy. So those are my main general thoughts. To me, I walked out of the theater thinking, like I said in my last video, it's a bit unnecessary. I just felt like there was nothing that happened in this that's going to really stick with me. Yes, she's the Emperor's granddaughter. Yes, spoilers. She gets rid of the Emperor. Yes, Kylo Ren, spoilers, major spoilers. Kylo Ren, in a point, is redeemed, and his initial redemption I actually quite like. That's the moment that actually won me over the most. There's a moment where Rey and Kylo Ren are battling, and something happens. I'll leave this alone. Something happens that helps turn him back to the light side. That was extremely effective to me. It's just at the end when he finally helped her, it just felt contrived and forced. All of it was too quick. It was flying through it. He's a good guy now. Okay, cool. The space battles, while they looked beautiful, it looked like something somebody said on Twitter, actually, a critic better than me, obviously, said that it looks like it's something straight out of a PC video game, and it kind of does. It just you see the size of the First Order's force and the Rebel force. That's impressive, but after that, you have not a general idea of geography, which is a big issue with really effects-laden films now. You don't have a sense of geography, where they are, what's left. Return of the Jedi did a pretty good job of that. Yeah, it was all models that they were using from the previous films, but you had a pretty good sense of what they were up against and who was winning and what was being blown up and everything. So that was pretty effective that way. The film does get emotional in a couple of spots. The ending, some people thought it was pretty emotional. I did not. I do think it honors some of the characters nicely. But there is a couple of moments that have to do with our boy Chewbacca. They did him well in this film. They did. So Chewie is well represented. Though honestly, I really would have liked Chewie to kind of earn his spot and just take a couple of big people out. He's kind of stuck on the Falcon the whole time with Lando. That's why Lando's there, to fly the Falcon. We know where he ended up after all that. He was on some random planet, and then he took over the Falcon to help the rebellion. So those are kind of some spoiler thoughts. I gave it 2.5 stars out of 4. almost gave it 2, but I did think that it was a dense, beautiful film, and it was entertaining enough that I did give it 2.5. But I was teetering between 2 and 2.5, folks. But like I said, it's very dense, almost too dense. This film flies. It goes from planet to planet to planet, nonstop, for real no good reason. I think they could have made it from point A to B to Z in a little more streamlined of a way. We never really get a good idea about these planets. They're just there almost as props. You know, I remember in the original trilogy and even the prequels, you got a good sense of these planets and how they felt, and the creatures on them. They moved so quickly that, again, it kind of felt like a video game. Let's jump back and forth to these different planets. She ends up on the planet from Last Jedi that Luke trained her on, and I'm blanking out on the name of it. Maybe I'll have it flashing on the bottom when I remember it. And I don't even know how she got there or why. Obviously, she took a spaceship. Why was she there? She literally in the middle of the film, she ends up back there to talk to a spoiler, Luke's ghost. Kind of helps her out, and maybe she says she's just going to escape there. But again, she just randomly shows up there for 5 minutes and then she's gone again after Luke tells her that she has to jump into a fight. And that's the final thing that I'm going to kind of sense in this. If you want to do something that's really for the fans and tie up loose ends, there is a heck of a lot of wonderful material just in these 9 films, not to mention the best material the last few years, which is from TV. Star Wars The Clone Wars animated show, Rebels, The Mandalorian, books, comics. There is so much great material to pull from talking about the Sith or the Jedi that you could have kind of just spiced throughout this. Not just for like Easter eggs or fans, but things to actually make the background of these characters and the Jedi and the Sith better. They chose not to do that. That's fine. It's kind of a bummer, but fine. But the be-all, end-all is not Palpatine. The be-all, end-all is not, Skywalker when it comes to the Jedi, or Palpatine with the Sith. So there's a moment at the end where Rey really needs to get the intestinal fortitude to kind of get up and really take on Palpatine. And again, big spoiler, but I expected, there's so much that needs to be said and bring back people in ghost form or whatever from the prequels, from the original trilogy. This was such an extraordinary moment to show the Force ghosts that are kind of lifting up or showing themselves to Rey to kind of help her on her journey. We never saw them. I can't believe, even if I don't like the prequels very much, that you can't grab Hayden Christensen, which I know was originally intended in The Force Awakens, and put him as a Force ghost as Anakin Skywalker to talk to her about who his grandson is, to help her on her journey, to help Luke Skywalker on his journey. And then when they both become Force ghosts, have them together, Mark Hamill and Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen. That'd be fantastic. You have an actor in Ewan McGregor who's the perfect age now, obviously for the Obi-Wan show coming on Disney Plus, but the perfect age now to take over for old man Kenobi, who we saw as a Force ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi. Hayden Christensen, Mark Hamill, Ewan McGregor. Perfect. Where are those Force ghosts? Yoda. We saw Yoda in the last one, but all these people, bring them out, man. Bring the power of the Force and the Jedi together to help defeat Palpatine for the final time. It just seems so rushed and so cliche how they helped her out. There's Force powers that I don't know where the heck they came from, but they're in this film. I think that's going to drive some people crazy. It just seemed like very fast writing. And I know it's easy to say that because we know that they were kind of filming to the last minute. They had a very short window to write the script after the last director left the project, and JJ came back to do the third film after doing the first one. And maybe because I know that it feels that way, but I don't think so. This is a script that's not very well thought out. Like The Last Jedi or not, that film knew what it wanted to say and why, even in the cheesy parts. Some extent Force Awakens, because you had Lawrence Kasdan, but the worst instincts of JJ as a writer rear their head in this. I think he made a good piece of entertainment. I definitely didn't love it though, and I had a lot of problems with it. If I have to compare the two, Last Jedi and this, Last Jedi feels more fresh to me, like it's going in a certain direction or place. So that's my review. 2.5 stars. I think it could have been a lot better. If I have to rate it out of all the Star Wars films, which people like to do, out of the 9 Saga films, it's probably 6. I mean, obviously it's above episode 1 and 2. I think it's below Force Awakens, which righted the ship even if it was safe. I liked Last Jedi a little bit more. I found Revenge of the Sith more interesting, honestly, even if it's kind of, the prequel trilogy had a problem with being a little bit dull and stale. Not stale, but a little bit dull and sterile is a better word for it. I'd probably put it at 6, honestly. Obviously lower down if you're including Rogue One, which I think is the best Star Wars film probably since Return of the Jedi. That's kind of where it stands. It's definitely a watchable film, folks. I mean, I just find episode 2 the one that's really hard to watch and doesn't age well. I can get through episode 1. This one is definitely watchable, entertaining. I think a lot of you will like it, but that's how I feel about it. So to sum up, I said 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going on 20. To sum up for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, 2.5 stars out of 4. Where does Star Wars go from here? I think they're on the right track with Mandalorian and the upcoming Obi-Wan show on Disney+. That's the right place to go with that. They're obviously going to make more movies. And where do they go from here? Honestly, like I said in my initial video on this, I think they need to jump ahead a few hundred years or jump way back a few thousand with Knights of the Old Republic. Do a Star Trek The Next Generation if you want to continue the story in the future. I don't want to see any of these characters again, folks. I love them, and that's why I don't need to see them anymore. I've seen Yoda and the Skywalkers and the Jedi and the Sith in this form, and Palpatine and Vader. If you do a Vader show, that's fine. I'll be on board. But for these films, he's done. I'm over that. I'm done with it. Where was Qui-Gon, by the way, in this? He never brought Liam Neeson back either. I think you need to do something completely fresh and new. I think that'll probably scare off Disney. If they're going to do something fresh and new, it'll be on Disney+, not in a $300 million film. But I think that's what they need to do. You can have lightsabers. You can have early Jedi if you want to do Knights of the Old Republic, like I thought they were going to do with the Game of Thrones guys. But go way in the future or way in the past. You are done with this era. Not just Skywalkers. Don't go into this era of Star Wars universe and the galaxy far, far away again. So that's it, folks. I hope you really enjoy it. I think you should buy tickets and go enjoy yourself this weekend. Someone in the comments from the last video said, don't give money to this Trek. I don't agree with that. A lot of people liked The Last Jedi. A lot of people didn't. I loved it, or I really liked it. I'm glad I bought tickets and went. I want people to go enjoy this movie. That's what it's all about. Or have good debate from it. That's what you do about cinema, folks. So I'm not going to stop you from seeing it. I'm not going to call it names. I was just disappointed and frustrated in it for the reasons I just laid out for 23 minutes. So go buy your tickets. Go see Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. This is what it's all about, man. Go enjoy Star Wars. Go enjoy and support genre filmmaking. Let Disney know that we're out there. They know that we're annoyed, or a lot of you are annoyed from Last Jedi. Believe me, they know that. This is an example of it. But we want Star Wars to stick around and be healthy on Disney+, be healthy in the future. So go see Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker, and then comment down below. I want to know what you thought. So if you like this video and others, give me some constructive criticism. We'll have some graphics, we'll have better sound, but remember, this is just the beginning. Constructive criticism, and I want to hear your comments and notes about the film. Let's keep it civil. There's enough craziness and critiques and opinions and trolling and bullying online and in our society. We don't need that here. So just go enjoy the film, hopefully. If you don't, let's talk about it down below. And please hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching Buttered and Salty, the review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. And I will see you guys next week, hopefully, if people keep watching these, with a new review. So I'm Josh Porter for Buttered and Salty. Have a weekend. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.